All right. Welcome back. This is episode 177 of the Fantasy Timeline, proud member of the Dynasty Addicts Podcast Network. We know we've been gone for a few weeks here, and actually, I don't think I've even posted our last show before the end of the playoffs. So, special treat this week. You'll get 2 episodes for the price of one that'll show up on whatever your streaming platform is. But I'm Drew at dr_pra. So I'll be hosting today with Bill. I almost said tonight, but for those of you that have been keeping up, I'm actually in Korea about 15 hours or 14 hours ahead of Bill. So for me, it's noon on Thursday. But Bill, how is Wednesday evening treating you in the U.S.?
Yeah, good. It's cold here in the Detroit area. We've had a lot of ice and snow the last week or so, and I think winter finally hit us. So just bracing to be a shut-in for the next month or two, and
Nice.
But overall pretty good. Football. It's a good time of year for football for both of us, especially, and
Yeah, still alive.
So that's the focus here right now.
Yeah, that was a pretty amazing game. Not gonna lie, I was not I certainly wanted to see the Lions do well for you and some other folks that I know from Detroit. But was very curious to see how the two quarterbacks that had switched franchises would handle the matchup, and certainly curious to see how Stafford would do again back in Detroit in such a big game. So I didn't get to watch any of those games because I was working all weekend, and then the Bills game got pushed, unfortunately, so I missed that one as well. But as far as what you saw, what was kind of the atmosphere in Detroit, knowing that Stafford was coming back and seeing that matchup ahead of the game?
Yeah, I mean, people were a little I guess conflicted, or at least they felt like it's like, man, why did we have to play Stafford in the first game, first home game in so long? And because I think anybody that watched that game saw the how just incredible he is. Like, he's like no look passes multiple times, just ripping it everywhere. I mean, a warrior, just basically smacks his hand on a helmet, and then he literally gets knocked out, somehow able to come back into the game. And which that just tells you that things are broken with the NFL and the concussion thing. But that just shows you, like, he didn't want to leave, and just that's what we all remember here. And so I guess the fact that the Lions ended up winning kind of is like a really cool story for, like, it's kind of almost like, okay, we move on, and it's cool to root for Stafford, and we rooted for him when he won the Super Bowl. And but now, it's our team is good, and let's enjoy our team and support our team. So I guess they booed Stafford when he came out to the field.
Yeah, chanted Jared Goff, which I get, support your
Yeah,
guy.
I mean, it's more of a we're supporting our team. And they play they play the Rams at home next year. And I bet you when he comes out, people will be cheering him. It's just that it was a playoff game. And so it was fun. It was nerve-wracking in the fourth quarter, just because it felt like the Lions were holding on. And I mean, overall, like, the refs in that game in general were pretty poor, and just screwed up quite a few things. And the Lions get a little bit more advantage maybe, but I mean, there were some pretty big calls in the first half that cost the Lions points. And so it seems like one of those ones where they didn't really get screwed like they did in Dallas a few weeks prior. And lo and behold, it didn't even matter that they got screwed in Dallas, because now they're hosting a home game again anyway. So it feels like maybe the NFL gods spoke, and made it right.
Yeah. We'll touch on Dallas, and then we got our friend Puff Pass Kick here, Packers fan, it looks like. So, we'll talk about that game as well. But interesting to see on a little bit on Twitter now, people kind of going back and forth trying to dig up some receipts and stuff. But pretty cool how it looks like at this point, the trade between the Lions and the Rams, I guess you could say, kind of worked out for both, right? Because Stafford, of course, went there, won the Super Bowl right away, so they got what they were looking for. Supposedly this was supposed to be a rebuilding year for the Rams as well, right? You're looking at that roster and, kind of Stafford maybe just holding them over until they got to whatever their next wave of talent's going to be. And then, of course, now you look at what all those picks that the Lions got turned into, some incredible talent, right? And a really good young core.
Yeah, it kind of turned into a win-win for both teams. They got their quarterback that took them to a Super Bowl and won it, and the Lions got the draft picks and a quarterback that's adequate, and they were able to build around him. And so yeah, one of those ones where it's just like, okay, cool, it worked, and it's kind of like we say that in Dynasty, where you want to make a trade that's going to help both teams. This is exactly it, right? Like. Just because it doesn't fit your build, maybe it fits somebody else's build and helps them win. So, it's pretty cool. And Packers, good job, man. That was I feel bad for Josh, being the Dallas guy, but happy the Packers won just so because it gave the Lions another home game. So,
yeah, that was I was not expecting that, and then you saw Niners came out and said that they were starting to prep for Jordan Love at halftime in that game, based on how things were going, which was not at all what I think too many people expected to see. But a lot of Jordan Love support coming out of the woodwork now. From early on in the season, some of those receipts getting pulled back. I know we talked about him early on. Did we feel like that first 3-game stretch where it looked like he was doing well was legit, and then he had kind of a couple of tougher games, and all of a sudden the last 8-9 games of the season, I think if you look at those statistics blindfolded, you would expect that those would be maybe a different quarterback's name assigned to those stats, right? I think one interception over the last 8 or 9 games with
it's like 23 touchdowns or something. Yeah. It's almost like what Jared Goff did last year to finish the season when the Lions kind of flipped from the 1-6 team to the 9-8 team. And so it's kind of interesting, like how he just got super efficient and wasn't making mistakes. And I mean, the difference is that Jordan Love can make plays, right? Like Goff is kind of like, your prototypical, he's not going to really run around and do stuff, but like Jordan Love has a little bit of like playmaker in him, and like point guard that he can make some pretty sweet passes. They're a lot of fun to watch, to be honest. Like Green Bay, my buddies and I were talking about it when we were watching the Lions game about how all of a sudden the NFC North looks pretty interesting across the board with all the teams. So like you can argue how they all could be like win the division in the next 2 years. So it's pretty interesting.
Yeah. Where does, speaking of dynasty a little bit here, any shift in perspective or value on Jordan Love for you now, especially in some of the super flex leagues that we play in?
Yeah. I drafted him in a few startups this last season, and totally as like let's roll the dice. Like I draft him and like Desmond Ritter, and like let's hope one of those two hits. And fortunately one did, and there's a lot of talk of him being a top 10 quarterback now. And I'd say there's probably 13 quarterbacks that I'm kind of happy to have. And I think I have him, he's in that pile. Like I actually just did my rankings, like I think like about a week ago, and let's see where I have him. Yeah, he's in the top 14, but he's in a tier from 9 to 14. So like, I don't really like rank them within the tier too much. So I've heard some people have him even higher than that. I can't quite get there just based on who. I don't know who I would move out of there. But like, I think Dak, Jordan Love is a conversation. I think
Yep.
Trevor Lawrence, Jordan Love is a conversation. Kyler Murray, Purdy, Tua. I think like those are all in the same tier for me. So like, yeah, he could be my 9th, he could be my 14th, and I wouldn't
Yeah.
be too. I couldn't argue really too much. I think Love is one of those guys that people are going to fall in love with just because he is that kind of like Patrick Mahomes, Stafford kind of flashy kind of guy. And, you know, he seems to have like a cool, like he's got a good head on his shoulders. You know, he's pretty, he kind of reminds me of Jalen Hurts a little bit. Like you don't see him get too high or too low. And he's just steadily improving. So,
Yeah.
God, it just pisses me off their process. Like, how come more teams don't do that? You know what I mean? Like, draft a first rounder, let him sit behind your quarterback for 3 years, and then put him in there. It gives the kid time to, you know, get acclimated and, you know, kind of just grow on his own. And you're not expecting him to be like Patrick Mahomes year 2, you know, and even Patrick Mahomes sat a year. So it's like,
he sat for,
so it's like, maybe teams need to start doing that a little bit more and drafting guys that like, that's why I feel like the Lions drafting Hendon Hooker isn't like, you know, that was a decent move because if he wasn't hurt last year, maybe he's, you know, a 2nd round pick instead of a 3rd round pick. And so you get a guy that you can kind of groom, and if you know after a couple of years, maybe he's somebody you get rid of the contract of Goff, and you have a guy who's making $5 million or whatever, you know, instead of $40 million. So I think that people are going to start paying more attention to what Green Bay does because it's a trend, right? It's not just fluky.
It's 3 in a row now.
Yeah. So, and I mean, at least they've done the same thing with Rodgers and Love.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, it's pretty cool to see. It sucks that they're in the Lions division, but yeah, it's going to be fun. It's going to be a fun division for the next few years for sure.
Yeah. Well, staying in that division and another quarterback, I guess. So you have Fields in Chicago, right? So I'll let all the speculation begin. You know, his last press conference, you know, a lot of gratitude on his end. Because he seems uncertain, right? Whether or not he's going to be there, what they're going to do with that pick. If you're in a startup, do you want him or Jordan Love at this point?
I want Love. It's just the known. I actually Fields is in that next tier down for me. He's actually 15, 16, 17 is a tier for me, and it's Fields, Watson, Goff.
Okay.
So I'm not sure what's happening. I think this is a time if you really do like Fields, he's probably a decent buy, like before you know what's going to happen, because once that happens, people are going to be a little bit more, you know, people get nervous when they don't have all the information. And so he might be a buy. What that is, I don't know. It's interesting that they interviewed Greg Roman to be the new offensive coordinator for the Bears, because Greg Roman typically is good for running quarterbacks. And that would make me think like they were doing that based on keeping Fields. Because Caleb Williams isn't a running quarterback. So it makes me think if they're just kind of doing their due diligence, or if they're really considering keeping Fields and trading the number 1 pick, or going a different direction than quarterback. But I should look up some Fields trades.
That'd be interesting to see. Because I would have guessed that Fields would have been lumped into that like back end QB1 kind of a range based on his mobility and assuming that he gets a shot somewhere. But yeah, I mean,
Yeah,
this is what we go through every year, right? Kind of that carousel, not only with coaching staff, but then also with some of these players, because a lot of these teams are expected to need a quarterback, and then we're trying to speculate. Do they have the draft capital to do it, or are they going to have to go find somebody that's kind of getting moved out of their spot?
yeah. I just feel like Fields, like you've always been a little bit higher on him than I have, and I just have a hard time moving him up into that other one because I asked my question to myself when I tiered these was like when I got to that tier with Love and Dak, all of those guys I'm totally comfortable that they're going to be my quarterback. Like they could be my QB2, let's say. And like Fields, I'm just not super confident that in 2025 he's a starting quarterback. Like there's a seed of doubt for me, and so that's kind of why I don't have him quite as high, just because like he's improved, but he's not. His processing is still really rough, and who's to say he ever falls into a coach that's going to coach him properly, because. Or is it just he's never going to be able to? He might be able to run, but if defenses learn to contain his running, then he's kind of just screwed if there's any pressure. And so I'm not sure his processing's ever going to get to the where I feel good that he's going to be a quarterback year in, year out. Maybe I'm wrong, and that's where the risk comes in, right? The risk reward and
Right.
getting Fields at a decent. I'll still buy him this year, price depending, but like I'm just not sold that he's like a definite starter.
Did you get any trades pulled up there?
Yeah, so let's see. All of these are in the last 5 days. So Fields and Rashi Rice for Jamar Chase and Khalil Shakir. Fields and Roshan for Jalen Waddle, a 2 and a 3. Fields for a 1 and a 3. Fields and a 2 for Javante and Trey McBride.
Assuming that's a heavy premium.
Fields, Kyron, a 1 and a 2 for Mahomes.
Wow.
Fields for Baker and Kelsey.
Wow.
And then Fields for Achane, a 2nd, and Aiden O'Connell.
Wow.
So is it less than you expected?
I mean, some of those, that Waddle one felt like less than what I would have expected. Yeah, I mean, I was initially thinking, if I would give a late first for Fields in most scenarios. I think, like if I've got, like let's say Stafford was my QB2 this year, and I did really well, I would definitely consider giving up, one of the last 3 picks, the 110, 111, 112, to
Yeah, I
get
can buy
Fields.
that. So you do the
So
first and a
much.
third if it's like a
I'd probably
later.
do the first and third. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would definitely consider doing that, because I feel better about him than. I mean, I haven't really even dug into this year's rookie draft to see. I mean, is that like a Michael Penix spot or something toward the end of the
Probably.
first there?
Yeah. I mean, I see like some people are putting JJ McCarthy in that like 109-ish range now. So, I mean, I'd rather have Fields than him, I think.
I think so.
Um,
Yeah.
But like I think that's just pushing wide or quarterbacks up a little bit. I don't think necessarily he's, 108 material, I guess.
Material,
But
yeah.
I think like
Yeah.
most people are pretty happy with 1 through 107. Like there's like a that's that the what's his name, the wide receiver from Washington, Adunze,
Yeah.
is like 107,
Rome.
and then after that they're kind of there's a little bit of non-consensus moving behind that. So at this point, of course, but
yeah, depending landing and all that, but yeah, so I think I would do that. And then I think the one that really surprised me was what was the Kelsey trade? Giving up Fields
Kelsey
to get
and Baker.
Baker. Baker's another one, right? Interesting to see how he's done this year. All sorts of stuff over social media. A year ago, he was playing, what was it, like dummy defense in practice for the Panthers, and however serious that was. But to see him, come back, and he got the Browns their first playoff win in a long time, and now he's got his second playoff win here. And I think it was good to see for him he could win consistently this year versus he went to the Rams last year, came in for that really short turnaround and got a spot win, but never really kind of panned out to more there. So, but he's another guy, right? Would I rather have Fields or Baker and Kelsey next year? I'd probably still rather have Fields. I feel like that's valuing Kelsey probably a little high still for another year on him. But if you really think Baker could be within a couple of points of Fields any given week, I don't hate it, I guess, but I wouldn't do that if I had Fields. I feel like I would. I don't know. That's probably pretty fair because if I had Baker and Kelsey, would I give them up to get Fields? Debatable.
Yeah, I think that because Kelsey has that name value, it's really tough to like move him for somebody you're not, 100% confident on.
Right.
And I think you could argue like you're content with kind of hedging and taking Baker. Like I'm looking at like points per game in one of my leagues just to compare like what Baker in this particular league's averaged 16.4 points per game, and Fields averaged basically 18. So that's like 1.6 points difference. I feel like they probably have a similar career arc in regards to like where I think that they're going to struggle to find consistent long-term starting jobs. I mean, Fields has a better shot at that, but adding a top 3 tight end for a year, I can see why somebody would make that trade. I could also I think that's a good trade, probably depending on for both teams, really. So like, I don't think it's out of whack at all. Like if I'm a contender and I'm like, well, Fields is my third quarterback anyway. What's the difference if I have, and I'm adding a top tight end? And you would argue, you could argue that Kelsey is going to be better next year just because he was hurt all season. So, and plus he's not used to all of the extracurricular stuff going on.
Fanfare and
So I mean, it could just be his focus isn't totally there, on top of being a little hobbled. So, that's I'm surprised where my brain went to, kind of like you. Initially, I thought, wow, that's pretty light, but I could see how people can get there.
Speaking of Baker, I don't know what was the bigger surprise for you, the Dallas upset or the Philly upset?
I'd have to say it was the Dallas, just because Dallas, their offense looked really good. Their defense looked solid. So I didn't expect Green Bay to just torch them like they did. Philly struggled. Like they've only won one game out of the last 6. So it's like, it kind of looked like things just weren't right there. And then Hurts getting hurt, he basically dislocated his throwing middle finger. And I mean, AJ Brown, didn't play, and there was all that other stuff going on, which I really didn't pay attention to too much, but just a lot of things that just seemed like it wasn't right there. And their defense is just, I mean, they're the Detroit Lions defense from 2 years ago. Just getting torched by everybody. And I mean, it was embarrassing. Just, I don't know if you caught any of that game, but just like that defense could not tackle. I mean, every single wide receiver broke tackles, and it was just like, it's like they had given up kind of. And, they tried to band-aid it all year with different players, and like they lost a ton of players during the free agency, and it was time to pay the piper, I guess, and they just weren't able to kind of band-aid it as well as they hoped, I guess.
Yeah, that I think on paper that one just shocked me, but yeah, as you talk through it, that makes a lot more sense. Um, yeah, it's just playoffs are wild, right? Any given Sunday, it's fun
It's
how
all
much
matchup,
our dynasty world, reflects some of the real world here. Let's get to this question before we get too far here. So Puff Fast Kick is asking, have one Tua share in dynasty. I believe his contract's up in 2025. Do you think it's a good time to test the waters? If so, who would you pivot to? Already have Love and Stafford.
I feel like Tua is somebody I'm not looking to do much with at this point. I feel like his value in the dynasty waters is kind of low. Like I feel like him, Dak, Jalen Hurts, even. This is just the wrong time to try to like move those guys because there's a negative fresh in people's minds, and I think like maybe being patient, wait till preseason, do something then if you want. But I'm almost like somebody who would just rather wait till the season starts and we see him putting up big numbers with Tyreek and Waddle and Achane and insert whoever else in there. I don't think I'm too worried about it at this point. I think the GM said that they're still hoping to make him a long-term quarterback. I'm not sure why he would have come out and said that unless it's true. He could have just not said anything. I think that like this is his 5th-year option. If worst case, like they're not going to just like let him go, so they're going to probably franchise him if they have to. He's still a good enough quarterback. I mean, we saw it this year. It's just that team just got so decimated at the end of the year, and then they fell into like a bad matchup against a really good defense in the freezing cold. Like just unfortunate. And I think I'm a hold on Tua at this point.
Same. Yeah, if you didn't move him in like the first 6 weeks of this year when they were just absolutely going off, that would have been peak value. So yeah, I would agree to hang tight, make sure everybody's coming back, ride the good news over the summer, see some splash plays again. And I think his value will come back up. So I'm not worried about the contract part, like you said. So, and I'm honestly, if somebody's offering me to at a reasonable price, I'm definitely interested in that too. So
yeah, I'm going to pull up some of his trades just to see like kind of what's happened.
Yeah, hopefully you have some picks and stuff as well for this year. So, because you never know what's going to happen with Stafford, right? I think the last couple of years everybody's been a little bit tenuous to count him as a full quarterback on your roster. So yes, I'd love to have Love and Tua as a solid 1-2, and then you can really.
I think Stafford's a great third. Like I'm happy with that QB room. I'm not really doing anything. I mean, if you can upgrade at a reasonable price, I'm cool with that. Stafford's a perfect QB3 in my opinion. Stafford, Cousins, maybe guys that can give you QB1. If one of your other QBs go down. Let's see here. It's hard to do the ones with picks because you don't know where the firsts are,
Yeah. Where they're going to be.
Brees in a third for Tua and ETN. That seems.
I would take Tua and ETN pretty easily.
Yeah. That's a 10-teamer. Maybe that changes a little bit. But still, I feel like the value's on the Tua side. Tua, Josh Jacobs in a first for Mahomes.
Yeah, I mean, I would take Mahomes.
It's a 25 first too. So, I would do the Mahomes for sure in that.
Yeah.
Stroud and Gainwell for Jonathan Taylor, Tua, and a second. I mean, I'm pretty in love with Stroud.
Stroud, yeah.
But I mean, I think that's a good trade. Tua for Purdy. Yeah, not a whole lot that's notable. So
No.
Yeah, I probably hold. I feel like Tua, you're just not going to get what you want out of it.
Yeah.
Trying to think if there's how many quarterbacks are there that
combo.
Like Love might be a more of a sell right now, to be honest, because people are so amped up about him. Like if I was going to move somebody, I think it would be Love. Just because of his magic from last week. Like,
yeah. So I guess anybody in his receiving core that you're more excited about now that he's got this solid season.
I mean, I guess Musgrave, like he's the one like I feel good about, but then like Tucker Kraft comes in, or I think that's his name, or and he showed up. So it's like, okay, well, how much is Musgrave? How much of it is Love? And then it seems like we don't never know which week it's going to be. Is it going to be Dubs? Is it going to be Reed? I mean, those seem to be the two main ones, but then you have Dontavian Wicks, every Christian so often, Christian Watson, I think honestly, Aaron Jones like a lot of this, Aaron Jones is a huge like part of why this team is playing the way it is now, because they finally have that dynamic running back that they didn't have for quite a long time this season. So, I almost rather play it as Jordan Love. And I don't really think I would have a hard time letting go of any of the pass catchers. Maybe Musgrave's probably the one I want on my team the most. And then probably Jaden Reed.
Same. At cost, right?
Yeah, at cost, right. And then probably Dubs personally, because I just feel like Christian Watson's a little too overvalued at the moment, based on injuries, and I still think he's really good, but now I'm concerned: is he ever going to get that high volume that we want for him to become like a truly, a difference maker at wide receivers? So, I think he's probably last. Yeah, I mean, Wicks and Bo Melton are definitely guys to add. Bo Melton's probably a little bit further down. I mean, Wicks is a guy, like, I'm pretty sure he wasn't available in any of my leagues by week 13 or something. So, Bo Melton's probably available in some still. But I think he's a little bit further down the pecking order, because there's only so many wide receivers you can really use that, like, there's games where Juwan Jennings popped, you know what I mean? And it's like, okay, everybody adds them, and then you see him slowly get dropped because he's just not getting the opportunity. But yeah, it's the offense looks amazing, but I almost wonder if that's going to be one of those offenses you're just never going to be able to pick who's going to.
Yeah, it's going to be tough. You just let other people kind of reach for that value, right? And just be happy with what you find afterwards.
Yep, exactly. And if you can move those guys, move them. Let's see. Here's Love and 2 firsts for Stroud and Roschon.
Man,
I mean, that's tough. Like, I mean, Jordan Love could score the same as CJ Stroud moving forward. We just gotta be careful, because I remember you and me just completely like getting all excited about Josh Dobbs after he had a couple games, and like we were kind of talking about like how, he's probably definitely got a job next year and all that, and then like 2 weeks later he's not even starting. So I mean, I'm not saying that's going to be the case with Jordan Love, but sometimes we got to make sure that we don't get too ahead of ourselves based on a small sample size. And we're to the point where I don't think that Jordan Love is a small sample.
No,
but like you could argue that he's going to end up being very close to CJ Stroud for the next 5 years. And if you get two firsts, like that's pretty good. So
that's solid. I would, I did. At this point, I would probably take Love in the firsts.
I think I would too. It's a first and 24 and a first and 25.
Yeah.
There's another one, Love in a second for a first and a third. Like, I think that's a no-brainer, depending on where that first is.
I mean, unless it's a top 2 pick, top 3 pick.
Yeah, I think it would have to be, right? Like let's say it was Malik Neighbors, right? Like, he's one of those he's a top 5 guy, I would guess.
Yep.
Would you do Malik Neighbors and a third for Love in a second?
Yeah.
Yeah. So then you get forward, and then it's like Jaden Daniels, right? Like, is that his name? The LSU quarterback and a third, or Love in a second.
Take the guy that's done it.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. So I think you can start to kind of go pick your poison at 104.
Yeah.
I think like 105 and back, I almost think you have to do the Jordan Love side.
That's pretty easy, I think, at that point. Yeah.
Yeah.
Which again, I don't do a whole lot of film and stuff like that, but
same. Just basing it off of what we've heard at this point.
Yeah, Marvin Harrison or Jordan Love. That gets a little bit more.
Yeah, that's
difficult.
Like, because you're almost like equating him to like CeeDee Lamb or Jamar Chase at this point with the hype. At worst, Amon-Ra, right? And like, value wise, so it's like he's definitely a top 4 or 5 wide receiver entering the league.
Yeah.
So I can see doing that if you're.
Yeah.
Like, I'm taking the 102. I think if it's.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean it's crazy to see, and I think a couple years ago we thought the top 4 or 5 quarterbacks were like locked in value for the next 7 years, right? And then you forget that this stuff happens, and we've talked about it before with the Packers being an organization that typically they play the long game, right? And they will commit over time. So yeah, I think Jordan Love feels like he's earned himself a nice runway, nice bit of career here or there. And I can, they'll replace Aaron Jones, they'll replace some of the older pieces, and yeah, I mean the organization just typically seems pretty well run.
Yeah.
So it's hard to discount that as well. So yeah, I think at that point that's where, like you were saying with Justin Fields, you're definitely taking a big gamble on where he lands and if the next organization will commit to him in the same type of way. So, but yeah, some really interesting stuff in the last few weeks since we talked about some of these guys and what they've been able to accomplish, and who will kind of end up where. So this is where all the fun starts. We're starting to see some of the college guys either confirm that they're declaring for the draft, or a couple of guys now that have said, no, I'm coming back to school. I forget who it was recently. Somebody that I think some folks expected to. Was it a wide receiver that's coming back? That's going back.
So there's 2 guys from Ohio State. Their second wide rector, Abeka.
That's right. Yeah.
Something, and then their running back also is coming back, and they got like a running back from another school who's supposed to be a Judkins or something like that. I don't know, from one of the SEC schools.
Transferring in,
and then I think the Texas quarterback is staying.
Ewers is staying.
So there's some guys, and maybe to be honest, like he looked okay, but he didn't look like dominant to me. At least he has some super talented players, wide receiver and tight end, and there's a reason he's going back,
Yeah, I get not wanting to come out the same year as Caleb Williams and Drake May. Where is he now? If Jaden Daniels' stock has risen so much with Heisman and stuff.
Yeah, I think that there's a pretty clear top 5. between the 2 wide receivers and the 3 quarterbacks.
Yeah.
I think that's probably right. And then Brock Bowers, if it's tight end premium.
Yep.
And then Udeze or whatever it is from Washington.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think those are kind of the top 7 at this point.
Yeah. I mean, where's the first running back going to get drafted this year?
I mean, that Henderson guy, I think from Ohio State, was supposed to be the top guy, and now he's not even going pro. So, I mean, I can't blame running backs for staying in college, and getting that NIL money. You understand that you're probably not likely signing a big contract after your first NFL contract. So you may as well get it while you can in college and be a man and maybe win a national title or whatever, just make the money and then go to the NFL and get used and abused, like 1 out of every how many guys ends up getting a decent contract after their rookie contract.
Yeah.
Probably 1 out of every
10%.
How many?
Like 10%.
I would, like 10% of
I'm sorry,
top
3
3 round top 3 round running backs. I think that's probably right.
Yeah.
So it's like
highly unlikely.
Yeah, exactly. So it's just one of those positions where it just makes more sense to stay in college.
Yeah.
They're probably making millions of dollars anyway,
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, they got the life, right? I mean, that's
totally.
Do it while you're young, enjoy it. Yeah. Before you have like a real job.
Yeah. I went 4.5 years so I could enjoy an extra semester.
Yeah.
And I enjoyed it.
Yeah. So if for all you juniors out there listening, all you red shirts, take it from the older, wiser guy.
That's right.
Enjoy
it while you got it, man. You still don't have any responsibilities.
Right? Yeah. I want to go and be like you, Billy.
No, yeah, don't be like me.
Say that again.
Yeah, it's like Van Wilder.
Yeah.
I don't know if you ever saw that.
Oh yeah, 7 years, man. It's the way to do it.
Yeah, oh yeah.
Anything for this week? Now we get the 1 seeds get back in the mix. So do you see any? I haven't even looked to see who's playing whom yet this week. Who goes to San Fran? Who goes to
so
Baltimore?
Green Bay
I know the Bills are going to be in KC.
Green Bay is at San Francisco. Buccaneers play the Lions.
Actually, then Bills will be at home, right? Because they got the two seed. So.
Yep. Bills. Yep. Play at Kansas City. Plays at Buffalo.
Plays at the Bills. Yeah.
And then who's the fourth? Oh, Texans and Baltimore.
Okay. Yeah. Stroud and Lamar. That'll be interesting, huh?
Yeah, they played week 1, and it was like 25-9 or something. It's first game of Stroud. The Texans are totally different at this point,
Yeah.
And I would argue so are the Ravens. So it'll be fun. I think. I mean, I'm truly most interested in the Bills Chiefs game for sure.
We got to get over this hump.
I am rooting for you. I kind of have anti-Chiefs
at the energy right
now. And energy, yeah. I just feel Mahomes crying to Allen after that offensive offside call, when he was obviously offside, and he just feels there's some pissiness with the Chiefs this year, and I feel like I'm definitely rooting for you.
Yeah, man. I am. I'm gonna figure out how to watch this one, but yeah, it'll be with the last few years, man. We've gotten to the second round, and it's been tough. Just kind of closing it out. So I was thrilled week 18 to see the Bills close out the Dolphins and claim the number 2 spot. See the defense come up with the win. Saw a couple of 4th down calls from McDermott that maybe he wouldn't have made in regular season to go for it at some critical points there. So hopefully that's where the team is pushing for. But yeah, so that'll be a big game.
I mean, the biggest concern is they lost more players on defense. The
Mhm.
Bills did. And so it's like, man, like why you got to lose? You've already lost a ton of players and you lose more players before you play the Chiefs. But it's going to be a fun matchup. I think that's definitely the one that I mean, aside from the Lions, of course, just purely,
Yeah.
that's not sporting wise. That's just my team wise. And, but just pure competition wise, I'm really excited for that game. And wouldn't it be something if our teams met up in the
Oh, heck yeah.
in the Super Bowl? Like I have no, trust me, I am not living
winner
in
guaranteed.
I am not in fantasy land. I totally understand it's highly unlikely the Lions make it, but
Well,
a boy can
that's the
dream.
beauty of the playoffs, though. Yeah, I mean, that was the other thing on Twitter this week, right? Like all the stuff that Dan Campbell got grief for in the first couple of years, you start to see some of that come back and age really well, and then some of the practice video, or maybe some of the stuff that didn't really come out in the Hard Knock season, where that guy has won me over the last couple of years for sure. Can totally see why his team would run through a brick wall for that guy and for each other at this point.
Yeah, he is like the perfect Detroit head coach, man. He is like, I mean, yeah, he'll end up being a god in Detroit just for taking the Lions to the playoffs, which is sad. Like it's interesting dynamic because the fans were so euphoric after the Lions won. And it's like, yeah, you guys literally just won one football game. You know what I mean? It's like how many NFL teams win one every year? And this is just like the fans.
That's all right.
It's like we won the Super Bowl, you know?
Yeah. Hey, it takes. I remember when at one point Buffalo had the longest stretch without a playoff win, or it might have even been without going to the playoffs in professional sports in the U.S. until Andy Dalton and the Bengals let us in, and that was just such a watershed moment for the franchise. To sometimes you just have to know it's possible, right?
Yeah.
So who knows how far Lions go this year, but there will be nothing but more belief, I think, from the team. And it's cool to see some of the lifetime fans. I forgot what his name was, the guy that had season tickets for 66 years, but even some of the stars that are from Michigan, and just still pulling, believing in the team there. So it's only going to be good for the community and for that team. But any given week, man, belief matters. Things change on a dime in a game. So who knows what the upsets will look like. So yeah, it would be, I think for the NFL, of course there's the prime money making matchups and whatnot, but there's also something to be said for history. If we get a couple of teams that make it there where you're guaranteed a first time winner in the Super Bowl, that's also pretty unique.
Well, at this point, like who are the prime like draws? You know what I mean? I think it's San Francisco.
Yep.
I mean, really nobody else. And I mean, I guess Green Bay, but they're playing each other, right?
Yep.
I mean, Green Bay has a big fan base outside of just Green Bay, and then it's like, the Ravens, I'm sure. And then of course, Mahomes,
yep.
And the Bills to a point, but like, it's like a lot of the matchups are those teams this week.
Yeah.
So it's going to be interesting to kind of see how things go moving forward. And this is a great time of year just to appreciate football, where we don't really have to. We've worried about our teams for so long, and it's kind of a time to take a step back and just enjoy like good football, I guess. And and root for whoever we want to root for. And it's good luck to everybody. Good luck to Puff Pass Kick and the Packers. I am actually really rooting for you. I would love to see a Lions Packers game in the NFC Championship. Good luck to the Bills because fuck the Chiefs this year.
It's a T-shirt waiting to be made if it's not out there already.
Yeah. And but anyway, like I guess just we're 50 minutes into this. We kind of are starting to transition. I mean, a lot of we do a lot of dynasty anyway, but we're not worried about redraft or anything like that at this point. So we have we have dynasty focus moving forward for the off season, and like we kind of talked about startups, or I'm starting to see those pop up and things like that. And what are your plans for this year? Are you planning on getting in any startups?
You're the only one that I've committed to try to find something. So I've already informed a couple leagues that I'm out, and I've got to try to find my way out of a couple more. So that, again, I think the theme has been over the last couple of years trying to switch over from volume to more more meaningful leagues where people are in them that I want to be with, and continue to kind of refine what I'm looking for in a league that makes it fun for me as well. So I don't plan to pick up too many orphans or other startups besides whatever we find. So that's kind of been my main commitment, and then outside of that, just rebalancing and kind of dropping a couple of the other ones that are more just do them during 2020 2021. So
there's some of those leagues. It's like, this is the first year in a while that I haven't really like, I've always had a league or two that I'm just like, I'm planning on leaving this league at some point, and I think I've kind of cleared most of those out, and like I enjoy all the leagues I'm in now. So this is the first time I haven't really pared down at all. I have 17, which is a decent amount, but it's not unmanageable. Like, to me, 20 is probably my max that like when I was above that, I just was like, doing waivers sucked. But I think this is a year I'm really gonna, maybe I join a league, like, we're gonna do a league hopefully, and then maybe one more. But I think what I'm gonna try to do is start the leagues I do get into have higher buy-ins, because I'd rather do that, and rather than doing more leagues, just do more leagues with maybe higher buy-ins. Because I have a lot of like $25 leagues that, they're fun. Like, I have as much fun in those leagues as I do the more expensive ones. But I feel like the last few years have been pretty good for me in wins and losses, and it's like, why not?
Raise the stakes a bit.
Exactly. So. That's that. I'm looking forward to it. I hope we I hope we do. When should we do one? Do you want to do one before the NFL draft, where we draft picks before the NFL draft, or do you like to do it after the NFL draft, where the players?
I'd be open to doing. I'd be open to doing one like in March or something.
Yeah, where you got a little bit of a feel of after the combine, but you can draft the picks.
Yeah, who's coming out. Yeah.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah, before landing spots, and there'll be all the speculation stuff, but that can cut both ways. So totally. I would prefer to do something before.
I agree.
Too much information is out there. So I think in the next, get through the Super Bowl.
But then you're getting free agent news, and starting to kick in, and I dig it. Cool. Well, we'll keep honestly, our eyes out.
The real timing would be like a slow draft that starts like a week before free agent frenzy.
Yeah. And then by the time you're in like the third, fourth round, and your free agency starting to kick in, or maybe it's the 10th round, who's to say? But
I don't know.
I think it's usually about 2 rounds a day in my experience, in slow drafts. Like, that's usually
so we'll have to talk some more about how we find what we're looking for here, because I think you and I both agreed we're not setting anything up, right? We're not commissioning anymore. Okay.
No, I think I commissioned 9 leagues, or 9 leagues. So I am I'm at my max. I don't want double digits. So
we'll put something out there maybe in the Twitterverse with a little bit of what we're looking for, and then if anybody has something coming up, I think we've said it a few times already, but we're definitely looking at like a 14-team super flex, tight end premium.
Yep.
Higher the better.
Probably like a deeper starting lineup, like maybe start 11 or 12.
Yep. So those are kind of the big pieces, and then we certainly have preferences on some of the other stuff that we can talk through. But if anybody listening or watching knows you got something coming up, I think I would probably prefer a startup over an orphan. But I think we also talked about if we found a good startup, we wouldn't be opposed to trying 1-1 potentially, depending on who's in the league and what it looks like. But
it would be fun for us to start. It would be fun for us to do an orphan and kind of like document our process with an orphan. That would be fun. So, all right. Well, we'll keep our eyes out, and I'll shoot. If I see anything, I'll shoot you. Uh-oh. We got the bunny ears.
Okay.
I like
that's the fun of an open office here. So, cool. But yeah, so let's keep an eye out. I think you and I are in enough chats, Discords, things like that we can see some stuff come up, and then we can go from there. But I think for the next couple of weeks, it's just throwing all of our support behind the home teams and seeing what we can, kind of conjure up here in the universe for February.
Yeah, maybe we can do something like maybe we can do another show like after the Super Bowl or something, and kind of do that kind of thing, and we'll be really into dynasty season at that point.
Yeah, that sounds good. And then if anything else pops up, of course, we'll certainly jump on if there's anything that we feel like is really exciting or interesting to talk about. I think if we find the magical Super Bowl matchup, we'll definitely have some conversation leading up. So we'll see what happens there as well. But I know not a ton of content around the dynasty stuff here because neither of us is super deep into the Devi space or kind of doing the film stuff. Maybe we'll see if we can get Josh back on or somebody else.
I was hoping we could, like
February, March.
And by the way, congratulations for anybody that didn't know or follow us on Twitter or whatever. Josh finished 6th in Scott Fishbowl, which is just incredible to be like that high. And he had been in the top handful for a long time.
All year.
And so great season to him. And, so if you guys
that's like 2,600 people or something. It was ridiculous.
Yeah, it's like over 2,000 people, I'm pretty sure. So I mean that's pretty nutty. And give Josh a thumbs up if you get a chance. I'm sure he'd appreciate it. And hopefully we can get him on at that next show.
Yeah, it'll be good. Get to the fresh year here, but thank you for everybody that jumped in here. Saw a lot of folks kind of popped in and out to see what was going on. So Puff Pass Kick, good to see you in the chat again. Love the questions and some of the commentary, a little more context around the Packers as well. So definitely hoping that all three of our teams get another win this week, and we will definitely let you know when we're on here again. Like I said at the beginning, we'll drop the last episode for what that's worth as well. But always good to have folks in the chat, and thank you guys for kind of joining us in this impromptu session here. We'll try to give you a little bit more warning next time, but until then, I think that's all we've got for today, Bill. Have a good night, and I think we're out of here.
Late.